Hey guys, I wanted to make a video to further clarify how we're going to approach the first phase of the Mediation 1B project. And so I'm just going to go through how I ended up making this 3D print. So as you know, this would be the positive that's 3D printed. And then I also ended up printing a series of negatives that would be used to make your first cast. For Thursday, all you guys need to do is to model the print and make your and print it. So make this bigger and just show you. You're going to be coming to class with something that looks like this, based on your design. Okay. Great. So here I have in my Rhino space, I'll hide these for now, a box that I've constructed of two 3.75 inch by 3.75 inch boxes, top and bottom. And then I just put 4 curves connecting them, all of the same length, 3.75 inches. And then I have a few kind of primary shapes that you can see in red, where I have a circle at the top, a rectangle at the side. I put one square in the center that doesn't actually touch any of the edges of the box. A circle that's not quite centered in the square, so it's a little bit off-center. And then another circle below that. And I was happy to have things not perfectly match each other, just to see what the effects of that are when you are starting to try to look from the bottom, top, and side into the shape later. So after placing these circles, rectangles, and squares, I decided not to work with ovals. I started to connect these by a secondary set of curves. And so literally I was just making a line, do that on this layer, between the two corners of all of my shapes. That makes sense. Great. The next thing I did is I made sure to, if I'm working with a circle, because I'm using the command, not using patch, either surface from 2, 3, or 4 edge curves or a network surface, I needed to make sure to have some of these shapes exploded or sliced so that my circles split up into 4 quadrants, sort of. So if I select 4 of these curves, and I do something like network surface, I can start to build out geometry and just kind of be able to see what it looks like. And as you know, for now, the first phase is to create one solid. So this is a shape that's not going to have any holes in it. It's not a donut. It's a donut hole, basically. It's one solid. I noticed that I wanted to connect the bottom string of this rectangle and the side of this square, and so I just selected the two and do loft between them. Loft works well for kind of flat surfaces. And for the circle, here, I'll make my life easier. I'm going to deselect surfaces in my selection filter down there. Now that I've selected all of these, I don't need to rejoin them. I can just make a planar surface. Yeah. So you can kind of get the gist of this. So once I had done that for the whole thing, reselect surfaces. I took all of the surfaces that I made, and because they were joined, or they were made by curves, I know that all of the edges of my surfaces meet each other. And so I just use the command join to join them all into one solid. So when I select this solid, I can go over to the command panel and I can read that this is a closed polysurface, which is what I need for a 3D print. Okay. I'm going to isolate this really fast and show you guys that if I go to like my ray traced tab, I can start to try to see the qualities of the geometry. And right here, I'm getting these creases or seams that are showing me that the faces of my geometry aren't totally smooth like I would like them to be. And so in a little bit, I'll show you how I kind of remedy that. Now, you can look at that in like Arctic view as well. I'll show you. So if I zoom in far enough, the Arctic will start to show me that there are all of these creases in my surface that I don't necessarily want. Shaded mode. So the next thing I did is this will be for the next phase of your project, but I wanted to get the negative of this as well. And so the way I do that is I have my solid. I'm going to create a box around it. Right? And then I'll copy both of these over. Just isolate this. Okay, so you can see that I have the solid that I created inside of a solid box. And because they're both closed polysurfaces, I can use the command Boolean difference. This might be one point in this project where you can use the Boolean commands and it makes sense. So I've selected Boolean difference, and I'm going to select the surface to subtract from, enter, and select the surface or object to subtract with. And now I can see that I have a negative of my object, which is great. I'm going to start to slice this up because I know that I can't just have a continuous surface. I need something that I can cast with. So I drew a line that's along one of the creases. I'm just extending that line. And then I'll use the command trim. So if I select the line that I'd like to be the cutting object, then I can just select what I'd like to trim away. And that gives me a good cut. Another way to do this is if I select the cutting line, if I use kind of the cross part of my gumball, that will also allow me to cut straight through the object, and now I have two solids that have been cut through. I'll do that one more time. So I have a line that I'm going to use as a knife to cut through this object, and the way I cut is using my gumball, this little slicing part. I click on that, slice through, and I have two objects I've cut into. Great. Okay, so I cut my thing a few times. I have the first, you see this cut relates to this one, and what I did is I just rotated these to kind of lay them flat, to start to read how I would want to actually 3D print them. And it looks like this one's good. What I'm looking for is that the geometry doesn't have any overhangs. And what that means is, you can see a curve here, but if this curve were to continue up and over, I would have a cavity that would make it difficult to pull this print off of, or this negative off of the positive that I will cast into it. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for with these negatives. So if I show the other one, at first I think maybe it's okay, but okay, looks like that actually I might have a few problems, because if you can see, this curves up, and then at some point it continues over and it creates an overhang similar to what's going on this side. So I might just draw another line somewhere. You can be smart about how you draw these lines. I think I did that last time. But I'll just cut this object and I also have a problem here, so I'm actually going to draw a slanted line. See what that gives me. Okay. This one might give me a few issues, so I think for you guys, hopefully you can go through and edit a little bit more. But generally you're looking for negatives that don't have any overhangs. And I know that these don't, so. Okay. So let's say that I have objects that I'd like to 3D print now. They're all inherently in that 3.75 cubed box. And the way that I prepare this for a 3D print is I actually open another Rhino file. So I have one prepared here, but I'll show you how I do it. So clicking on Rhino 8. And instead of opening a regular one, I'm going to create a new Rhino file in millimeters already. So the units are already set to millimeters. I don't have to do any conversions. Perspective view. And then from the Rhino file, I'm just clicking my solids. I don't need any other information. And doing Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. And now you can read that the units here are millimeters. And if I draw a line, it's in millimeters. I'm just going to move these apart so they're not actually touching. So I'll move over 2 millimeters in both directions. So for all of you as you're printing, this is kind of the process you'll go through. Is you'll want to have 1, 2, 3, 4 prints on the bed at a time, but they need to be spaced out at least by like 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters, maybe 2 to be safe. Okay. But returning to that problem where the surface quality of this is not quite what I would like, so if I zoom into an Arctic mode, you can see kind of the surfaces seem fine, but I'll need to transition over to a, yeah, see that? Okay. So the way that I'm going to try to aid that is by remeshing the objects. So right now these are curved surfaces. And I'm going to go into Grasshopper to remesh the thing. Great. If you haven't used Grasshopper before, Grasshopper is native to Rhino. It's not a scary program. It's just another way to think through modeling through like words and nodes and stuff. Great. So to create a new node in Grasshopper, you double click. So I'm just going to go through the process of how we figured out a script to kind of smooth out the surfaces. So I'll double click and breadth. Okay, I'm going to create a new breadth. And I'll set multiple reps. The way I'm able to get to this is I click on the thing, I can right click, and it gives me a menu bar that allows me to say set multiple reps. I'm going to select all of the reps that I would like to operate on, and all 4 at a time is fine. Next, I'd like to turn this into a mesh. So I'll do a mesh rep, which just converts the rep into a mesh. And by clicking this little ball at the end and dragging, I can drag it into the rep option part right here. And so it's converting all of these reps into meshes. But I'd like to, in the red, you can kind of, here, I'm going to hide my source information. Right now you can kind of read how the mesh is looking, and it looks kind of, if I just bake this right now, and I look at this in Arctic mode, this is not at all what I want. It's really like, the surface quality is not smooth. So it looks like I need to do a little bit more. So delete those. Go back to shaded mode. Cool. So if I open some settings, if you can see right here, there's another plugin that you can, or another like node that you can plug settings into. So double clicking, I'm typing in settings. I'd like to use the settings custom one, and I'll connect these. So now whatever I do to this will apply to the mesh. And I'm going to use this max edge command down here. So double clicking. I'm going to just, I guess I'll describe what this is. So maximum edge is going to set the maximum length of any of these mesh edges that I have. And so right now the mesh edges are pretty long. I'd like to decrease the length of those mesh edges so that each mesh face is smaller. It allows me to have a more detailed, kind of smooth surface. Because each of these is kind of a flat plane between the chords of the mesh. Move this a little bit over. So to create a number, I'm going to create a number slider. So I'm just double clicking and typing in the number 2, and it automatically creates a number slider that basically allows me to move the values of that number slider up and down. So I'll connect these together, and right away you can see that the meshes are a little bit smaller. But if I go down to like 2 or something, they're much, much smaller, which is what I'm looking for. The whole numbers of these number sliders relates to the units that your project is in. So this file is in millimeters. So I'm saying that the maximum edge length of my mesh is 2 millimeters. If you're working in inches, you just want to like, maybe it's 0.2 inches or something, or 0.4 inches. Great. So I'll just click on that. To bake, which means to kind of take it out of Grasshopper space and into Rhino space. I use the center of my mouse, the scroll button of my mouse, and I click, and that pulls up this menu that allows me to bake, which is a little fried egg symbol. So when I move these over, I think that this is getting closer to what I want. It looks like it's retaining the hard edges that I have, but also kind of having a more smooth surface. But just to confirm, I'm going to go back to Arctic mode and, my bad. Let's go to Ray Trace. And Ray Trace is just showing me that it's a pretty smooth surface, and that's good enough for me. Yeah. Now that I have this, I'll just show you all of these need to be translated into an STL file, as you know. So I'll click what I would like to export, which are my meshes that are already at scale, already in millimeters. Export selected. I'm gonna create an STL file. I already have one, so I'll just name it try2. And the options are just fine, so now I have an STL file. I guess the last thing I can show you how I bring it into the Bamboo like preparer. And so here are those files. I'll delete this and bring in the ones I just made. Try2. I'm just dragging and dropping this file in. And yeah, I can slice the plate. And that's giving me a pretty good idea of what I'll be printing. Cool. Thanks, guys. You'll be able to see a time lapse of these guys being printed, but that just really helps you to control the surface quality of your 3D prints. So you have something that's just like really smooth where you want it to be smooth and sharp where you want it to be sharp. So you're not allowing the technology to control how your geometry is. You have more control over that. Cool. Good luck, guys.